Hey, Aaron.
Hi. Oh, my audio is not going in my headphones.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I cannot hear you.
There we go. Now it's in my headphones. There you go. That's probably better. Oh, look at you. Show off.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Zoom.
Really? Huh. Okay. Interesting. Let me try something here. How's that? No?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Hold on. No? Okay, that's really strange.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
You got me now?
Yeah,
And now I look like a radio DJ.
it's great. It's great.
All right.
Awesome.
So many ways to skin a cat, right?
Oh God, I hate Zoom.
There's always something. There. All right.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. God.
No, it's life. No, I've done this a million times, and there's always something.
Yeah. Our support team also uses this for like this line for account reviews and stuff. And so they have an account review booked for 11 o'clock too. And we're like, no, we need it for the webinar.
Nice try.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
Yeah. All right, here we go. So I just started the webinar, so that should allow people in.
Great.
Here we go. All right, we got people coming in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Very excited. If you want to just sort of like start letting us know where you're coming from, where you're joining from, you can throw that in chat. Make sure that you're switching the setting to panelists and attendees, so you're not just sending it to Aaron and I, but so that everyone can see where you're coming from and what you're doing. So if you wanted to start letting us know where you're coming from, that'd be great. Yeah, and maybe what the weather is like. Your glorious location. I don't know
if it's nice. If it's nice, I don't want to know. If it's cloudy and moody, sure. Cold, rainy, snowy, fantastic.
Our spring out on the West Coast has not really sprung yet, unfortunately.
No, but I have, instead of weather watching, I have a unicycle watching. There's a unicycle on the roof of the house directly across the cul-de-sac for me. It's been there at least a month. There are no clowns in the bushes. I checked, so nobody fell off. And there is a mattress on the ground. So I'm curious. Someday there will be a stunt. So I'm scared to leave home because I don't want to miss the unicycle stunt.
That's awesome. All the weird things that people just leave around. Just want to say a big thank, hello to Teresa, Sharde, Mahara, Amanda, Gail, Jenna, some of our great customers for joining us from Gusto. So just thanks for joining us, and welcome to the webinar. Karen, thanks for coming in. Excited to hopefully we can help you out, and I know Aaron's got some amazing stuff to talk about, and so I'm very, very excited.
Don't set expectations too high. We got to keep them low, and then I just blow them out of the water. Reverse engineering.
I got to see this presentation already, so I know how good it is. So welcome Ivy, welcome Sierra. Super excited to have everybody here. Yeah, great, super excited. Yeah. Well, let's give another couple minutes for people to kind of roll in as we get here. We've got about 40.
I'm going to shout out to some of my clients. Are you ready?
Please do.
Teresa, hello. Gail, Amanda, thank you so much for being here. I know you had other reasons for attending, but I'll pretend you just wanted to hang out with me some more. Fantastic. I love this. I'm just scrolling through so many great people here. This is amazing. Yay. Hello, indeed.
Here we go. I was just told I need to rename myself because my name is not actually Team Gusto, but actually.
I'm just Erin. I don't have a last name. I should update that. Rename. I'll rename myself. There we go. There we go. All right. Fantastic.
Nope, that's not what I wanted to do it.
Noah has the fancy background. I have my children's art. This is how we, some people, you know, like HGTV style, they have it all framed and everything. This is how we display art in my house. Just throw it on. And when it gets too thick, then we have to clean it out.
You should see my fridge.
Yeah. Oh, the fridge has got it too. It's everywhere.
Yeah, no,
You can only dispose of kids' art when they're asleep, and you have to put it right down at the bottom of the recycle bin or they find it and then you're in trouble.
True. We have a big.
Yes, true. It is, Teresa, it does make it easier to update. Absolutely. It's quick turnaround around here.
That's good. Yeah. We have a big tote that we just fill. And then at the end of the year, we make Leaf, our oldest, go through it and he gets to choose 12 things that he gets to keep and then everything else goes away.
Okay, you have to come and do that at my house because my son wants to keep everything.
It's only really worked once, so.
Yes. Look, we're getting tips, life hacks. Take pics of the art and keep it in a folder so they don't lose it. Yes, that's what you need.
Yeah,
so it's all kept.
There is an app for it out there.
There's an app for everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get that one because yeah, it's becoming. I have keepsake bins for my kids, but man, we're already on like the third bin, and they're not even. You know, my son just turned 10, and he's the oldest, so it's accumulating.
Yeah, mine's only 5, and we still have one of those bins already. So.
Yeah, it adds up. It adds up.
Well, all right. I think we're at the point where like most people you're gonna join. We'll probably have a few more stragglers come in, but let's sort of get things rolling. And very excited to hear more from Erin and excited to hear it. So just like quick introduction. So my name is Noah Warder, for those of you who know me, and for those of you who don't, I'm the head of people here over at Gusto. My job really is like HR support, all that good stuff, and I get to help out on the marketing side. And Gusto, we're always here trying to help everyone recognize and reward their employees and really build that culture of recognition. And so that's what kind of we're all about. But also these webinars aren't about us. They're really about, let's bring value and resources that HR people and managers and anyone who's really dealing with people on an everyday things that you can use during this difficult time that we're all in. It's with COVID and upheaval and social movements and all these things that are really sort of making us have to reassess our workplaces and what we should be doing as companies and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm really excited to have Erin here today and talk about mental health and resilience, because we're all in this together and this is the time to really start. I mean, we should have been focusing on it earlier, but the pandemic has really brought the spotlight here. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here today. And I want you all to give yourself a pat on the back, because it's not always easy to carve out time for these sorts of things in your life, but this is a really, really important one. So I'm the Communications and Operations Director and co-founder at Amira Health. Previously, we were Family Sparks, but we have merged. And I just, today is about teams and helping your teams, but it's also about helping yourselves. Because in my time with Family Sparks and Amira Health, I've dealt with many, many different people and culture, people, HR people, and you carry a burden. You get what we call the trauma stick. People come to you with their challenges and they hand you the trauma stick and they walk away feeling a little bit better, like, oh, I feel a bit better. But you're left holding all of that. So today's presentation is not just about your teams, but also about taking good care of yourself, because we need you to hold your teams up. So let's hold you up as well. Okay, so this is what we will be looking at today. We have a program called the Sparks Mental Health Program, which is like an EAP, but better. Of course, I have to say that. It's true, but still. So I want to tell you about what we're seeing in our clients in that program, how you can support your team, and then building team resilience and yours as well. And we are going to be providing you with all sorts of slides and resources, but I would encourage you to have something to write on, whether that's digital or the old pen and paper. That's my favorite, because we will have some breaks throughout for you to do a little bit of work yourself. So fun work, good work, but have something you can write down on. Okay, so what are we seeing in our clients? Since the launch of the pandemic, we have seen our program usage go through the roof. People need help, and thankfully, a lot of people are reaching out, and some people aren't. As you can imagine, anxiety went way up. It triplicated actually in intakes for anxiety related issues. As well, people were struggling being locked up at home with their partner and were either seeking counseling to leave that relationship or to try to salvage it. So, those were the two main issues that we were dealing with. And now, what we're seeing as the pandemic hits the 1 year mark and we keep going on, the challenges are getting more complex because those that have not been addressed, those that have not been sorted out, are getting more complex. And as mental health issues are not dealt with, they get complicated. And so, what we're seeing now is actually reaching the point where people are really struggling with substance use. Some people locked up at home, literally just drinking all day in bed, working from bed, not doing well. And unfortunately, also a lot of people presenting with suicidal ideation. So things are getting more complicated. This is a really good time. As Noah said, we should always be thinking about mental health, but better late than never because when we get the shots in our arms, if you choose to do so, that's part of the problem addressed, but this mental health component is still going to be there to be unpacked. So, facing those multiple extraordinary stressors is a real big challenge for collective mental health, the mental health of our entire society together. So, what we need to do is assume this is a good assume that there are mental health issues on your teams, because there are. And you need to figure out ways to provide open and supportive leadership that's going to make it okay to ask for help, because they're there, whether they're presenting or not. I assure you, they're there. So we just want you to be aware of some common red flags, things you want to keep an eye out for in your team. If you've noticed any sudden changes in personality or behavior, maybe some increased sick days, anything where it's a change for the person. If they've always been like this, that's a little bit different. Maybe they're suddenly not meeting deadlines and they're making mistakes. And another one that's really key is I try to ask people to ensure you have an on-camera meeting kind of on a regular basis, because not only is that an opportunity just to see someone's face, it's an opportunity to see how they're doing. Are they showering? Do they look like they just got out of bed every single time? Any sort of visual cues that maybe that person is not doing well in their home office. And another really important thing to remember, just because somebody seems well, it doesn't mean they are well. We are seeing a lot of what's called high functioning anxiety and high functioning depression. And those are situations where someone is literally like an actor performing wellness. They come into the workplace or the remote office and they present, it's like, wow, she's just killing it, she's doing so great. But then at the end of that workday, they literally collapse and they crash because they have been performing wellness all day. And a lot of that can stem from economic uncertainty, fear of layoffs, fear that they'll be seen as weak and dispensable. So just really be aware that things are not always how they appear. So as I mentioned, the concern is when things get more complicated over an extended period, they become harder to tackle. And it doesn't end with vaccinations. There's going to be a lot more that we need to do together to get our teams back to whatever normal looks like at that time. So here today, focusing on what we can do. Psychological safety, proactive mental health support, and building resilience can all help your team members unpack this kind of mental health care mess that we've all found ourselves in. So now it's your turn. I want to know, how are you feeling? You can keep this. Yeah, Deborah, thank you very much. We have a poll. Look at this. I love it. How are you feeling? Scale of 1 to 5. 5 is the best. 5 is this pandemic has not touched me at all. And then we also want to know we'll do the next one later. I also want to know if you've seen any red flags on your team. Just a note for yourself. You don't need to share that information. Have you seen any of those common red flags on your team? And do you feel confident in your team's, your company's mental health supports? So I'll just give you a minute to answer those questions. And if you want to answer the poll, that would be fantastic. Oh, I can't vote? That's not fair.
We don't get to
Okay,
vote.
yeah, we don't get a vote. We don't get a say.
But I will say that I'm on that like probably 3 trajectory right now. We're trying to sell our condo, so that stress levels are quite high right now.
Absolutely. Okay, so just take a moment to think about those. Yeah, and And at any point, I should say, feel free to ask questions. If you have a question, feel free to ask it. I'm all good with being interrupted. And if at any point you want to share any answers to any of these questions or share any thoughts that are popping up in your head, please also feel free to do so.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
the Q&A section, so you can throw questions in there, and if
Yeah.
we answer them right away, we can answer them at the end of the webinar as well.
Okay. So, Deborah, are we okay with the poll? Do I just have to close it, I guess, eh?
Yeah, we can.
There we go. Okay. Moving on to our next piece here. Oh, there's the results. Oh, we have a lot of psychologically safe workplaces here. That is fantastic. And yep, 3 is the average. I think that's about right. 4 is great. Congratulations to the 4s. And we do have some 5s. That's great. And a couple 1s and 2s. Fantastic. Okay, well, good to see everyone sort of in that 2 to 4 range for the most part. Statistical averaging. That was very mathematically accurate what I just did there. Okay, so how can we support your team members? Let's see what we can do. You and your team need to feel, whoops, sorry, go back. You and your team members need to feel safe speaking. Sorry, there's an issue here. There we go. You and your team members need to feel safe speaking openly and honestly. You need to be able to have effective conversations. You need to be able to take those risks, those innovative risks that can make a difference, a positive difference for your company. You need to be able to help those who need it, and you need to have a healthy culture and a healthy bottom line. But you can't have that if your team is scared to open their mouths. So what is psychological safety if you're not already familiar with it? It's also known as emotional safety, and it's a shared belief held by members of a team that the team is safe for that interpersonal risk taking. And most importantly, a belief that you won't be punished or shamed when you make a mistake. And that's really huge. So, some ways to create psychological safety. We want to normalize talking about mental health, and we want to talk about it in an empathic way. We want to set expectations for behavior and protect them. So if you see somebody stepping outside sort of what's acceptable in terms of behavior, that's where we need to speak up, clearly identify that's offside, and reestablish those boundaries. Because once a boundary is broken, it gets easier and easier to push that boundary down every time people come up against it. And also, if you have active listening skills, or maybe you don't know what those are and you need to work on those, active listening skills are really valuable, because one thing people really need right now is to feel heard. And it can be hard to hear people right now because a lot of what they're dealing with is the same as what we're dealing with. But we need to be able to allow our team members to feel heard and to feel that empathic response. So these don'ts should be obvious. This should not be stuff that happens, but these are all from actual things that have happened. And these are completely obviously unacceptable, but sometimes they are allowed to sort of just continue under the guise of this is how businesses work. So we don't bully one another, we don't shame, and we don't undermine team members. You just don't do that. It's completely unacceptable, and it breaks down that trust that your business needs to be successful. And really, we don't yell or throw, we don't kick, we don't punch things. It's kind of like daycare. We don't do that in daycare, and we don't do that as adults. That is a scary thing for people to go through, and we don't want them to be fearful for their physical safety as well as psychological safety. And as well, don't use derogatory language or imagery. And that is not just about like the blatant stuff like sex and violence. That can also be somebody going, oh my God, I'm so OCD. I don't know what I'm doing. Or, oh my God, she's so crazy. Using language around mental health in sort of an informal way can also be harmful to someone's psychological safety. So how do we talk about it? We want to be mindful of time and place. When you want to express concern for someone, you want to show them that you want to help them. We have to really think about where we're doing it and when we're doing it. For instance, if they are struggling with insomnia and we want to do this at 8 a.m., that's probably not going to work for them. And we also want to maintain privacy, and it needs to be one-on-one. Those kind of intervention style situations are not ideal and not healthy. So you want to ensure it's a private environment. Someone's not going to come walking in. And this is true for Zoom calls too. If you're sitting there having an intense one-on-one and suddenly your partner or a child walks in the background, that's not going to feel safe for that person. And again, you're going to hear me say empathy over and over again, showing empathy and support, showing that you hear them, you understand what they're saying, and that you're here to help them through it. You don't want to come out and sort of say something really aggressive like, I think you're suffering from depression. Am I right? You want to find a way to introduce the topic gently with them. And again, use those active listening skills. And one of the active listening skills that I think is really beneficial when you're talking about mental health issues is silence. Silence isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily something you need to fill. It's an opportunity for the other person to think. So don't feel that silence has to be a negative thing. So one sort of way of framing this that is I found really useful is this positing here. I've noticed you've been acting differently lately. So you notice with that, you're not making a judgment. You're not saying you look like garbage. You're saying you've been acting differently. Something's changed. It seems like maybe you're going through something. Again, you're not making a bold assumption like something is wrong with you. You're saying it seems like maybe you're going through something. I can imagine it's hard to talk about, and that's that empathy piece. I can imagine it's hard to talk about, but I'm worried about you. And that's where you're expressing that concern and that compassion. I am worried about you. And then how have you been doing? Giving them the opportunity with that groundwork to step into it and talk to you, rather than just saying, hey, how have you been doing? You can see how this kind of setup gives them more of an understanding of how what they tell you is going to be received, rather than just how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine, I'm good. How are you? So just that's one way you can frame it, just really useful. So be thoughtful about how you're going to say it, and it's okay to even practice before you do this. So ongoing ways to nurture your team's mental wellness. One thing we want to do is consider schedule. If there is flexibility, you don't have to be at an office or online at a certain time of day. If people are struggling with that insomnia and sleep disruptions, we're seeing a lot of that kind of middle of the night panic attacks and things like that. If there's an opportunity to be flexible and maybe let them work a bit later, or maybe they have kids and they need to work earlier, any flexibility that you offer that helps make that kind of help them balance out the reality of their life that they're dealing with right now is a really compassionate approach. You want to check in with them individually, again, one-on-one, as regularly as possible. And again, you're not walking into that with, hey, is anything wrong? Or you're not walking into that with an agenda. You just want to set up a regular individual check-in, because somebody might not come forward sort of in check-in number 1, 2, 3 to say anything. But as you're building up trust and time is going by, maybe 5, 6, 7, something comes out. Another thing that we try to underline is test drive your mental health resources. It's one thing to know what you have and how to access it. It's another thing to know what that user experience actually is. So we encourage you to just give it a test drive, see how it goes, how to do it, so that if anyone needs support accessing it, you know the experience generally that they're going to have. We've even had sort of people set up small sort of task squads where 5 team members were tasked with reaching out to test it out. So definitely be sure that you have the user experience that is desirable. And if it's not, that's a red flag for you to consider. And you also then want to make it really clear how to access those resources, not just a poster in the break room or anything like that, but an ongoing reminder of how those resources are available. Because again, the first time they might not do anything about it, but as time goes by and trust accrues, they may then reach out later. So now it's your turn. You've already answered the question, is your workplace psychologically safe? And we had a mostly yes, which is great, but we also had some no's. So what changes can be made immediately? Like, is there anything that you can immediately put into place? And what changes can be made over the coming months? And I also want you to consider, when we're talking about those red flags, is there someone on your team that you need to speak with? Is there someone that you're worried may be sort of in that red flag area, not looking so great, not doing so great, or maybe someone on the flip side who's in that high functioning area, who's performing wellness? So just take a moment to think about that.
And we can all kind of get into our own sort of mental roadway and sort of start forgetting about other people, but like, got to really make sure we're checking in with everyone, talking to them, and
Yeah.
like what you said, that consistent practice of like those one-on-ones. Maybe it's once a week, maybe it's once every 2 weeks. As HR people, it's so hard to meet with everyone, but maybe you do just like once a month you're meeting with somebody on the team at any given time.
Exactly. Yeah, just that regularity and familiarity. Because if you only see HR show up sort of once every 6 months or something like that, it's not someone you're gonna pour your guts out to. But then at the same time, I know there's many people who have a very, very good trust level with their team, and their team readily does come to them, which is fantastic. Okay, so here's my jam. I love this stuff. Resilience is amazing, and we're going to talk about how to build up your team's resilience, but also your resilience. But first of all, what is resilience anyway? It's a combination of thoughts, actions, and behaviors that describe the ability that ability some people have to bounce back when life gets hard. And it involves mitigating and decreasing what are called risk factors while adding protective factors. So, a risk factor would be something like a global pandemic that you cannot control. It's just a thing that exists. For some people, it may be coming from a family where your parents were divorced, maybe a parent passed away. There's different risk factors out there that we have to varying degrees that affect our ability to be resilient. But the great thing is adding protective factors, and those are the things you can control. Those are the things that when you do them, they help mitigate those risk factors and boost your resilience overall. So that's the part I like to focus on. The risk factors, that's just the way it is. But the protective factors, that's where we have control. And as a control freak, that is very exciting to me. So resilience helps you get through those difficult experiences, but it's not just about getting through it. You actually then come out the other side even stronger. You know the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? That's kind of what resilience is. You come out even stronger on the other side. But the coolest thing about resilience is it's not a personality trait. It's not this thing that Noah has and I don't have. It's something that everybody has, and every single one of us has the intrinsic ability to become resilient. So that is super exciting. So this is a really empowering theory that actually works. So at Amira Health, we approach resilience. We look at it as a compass to help us navigate through life, just kind of like guide us along the way. There's no hard and fast guidance in terms of do this or don't do that, because the world is going to throw different things at us. We can't prepare specifically for future events. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we can prepare in terms of how we react and how we cope. So we have a proactive resilience compass, things that you can do in advance to build up your resilience on an ongoing basis. And then we have a reactive resilience compass. You can see all the colors there. That is when you are in a moment and you're having to navigate through that. So that's a whole other presentation. So today we're going to focus on 3 points of the proactive resilience compass for you and your teams. The first one we're going to focus on is one of my favorites. Respect your vulnerability. I think vulnerability used to be kind of a negative term that had some negative connotations that meant weakness. And I think those are falling by the wayside in great part thanks to Dr. Brene Brown, all the work she's doing in that area. So what we want to understand is we are human beings and we can only do so much. And it can be really tempting to keep pushing through, burning the candle at both ends and really consistently overworking. But that is going to catch up with you. And if your team is doing the same thing, it's going to catch up with them. And the most common way that we see that coming in through the doors of our mental health program is burnout. We need to actively create a healthy working culture that empowers your team to stay effective. You want them to be effective now, and you want them to be effective 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. So allowing them to burn out is not going to allow them to do that, because burnout, just like a lot of other mental health issues, once stress gets to the level of burnout, it's a lot harder to address and take apart. It's much easier to address stress and put boundaries in place to prevent it from getting to the burnout stage. So here's a message we all have to remember. We can't control everything. It's so disappointing. So when you try to do it all at once, it might seem like you're handling it and you're kind of getting through, but something's going to give. And if it's not your mental health, it could be your physical health, relationships, and so many other things. We cannot do it all at once. Even Michelle Obama has said that. And God knows she has done a lot. So trying to excel at everything in our lives at the same time is a recipe for burnout. We have to accept that we are not invincible and we never will be. So, what we need to do then is separate our stressors. I want you to think about what is stressing you out right now in your life and look at it through a lens of control. Where can you make changes? What are the things that you can actually make a difference in? And then what's outside of your control? And then I want you to think for a moment, is overworking rewarded in your company culture? If people put in extra hours or don't take vacation or work through lunch, is that rewarded? And do any changes need to be made when it comes to overworking in your culture? Okay. All right, so some things to think about. We'll continue on now, but I do really invite you to come back and think about those because there's power in that, learning about what you can control and trying to mitigate those risk factors that you can't control. So another one that's really important is cultivating social support. This one, because strong social connections, this is all based on empirical psychology research. This isn't just me saying you need to be, hang out with your friends. This is actually research proven to build resilience because social connections boost our motivation, our physical and mental health. It obviously decreases loneliness, but again, loneliness is becoming it was already a problem, but an increasing problem due to isolation during the pandemic. Social connection can also help boost your self esteem and it helps you cope with stress and adapt more effectively when things are happening to you. So, what do we do to create connections during COVID? Well, we want to create ongoing no non-work opportunities for team connection. We don't want to talk about work, but we also don't want to just sit on a Zoom call and to pretend to be social. We've got to be creative. So finding ways to connect as a team, whether that's I've seen dinner parties, I've seen escape rooms, lots of different options, but finding ways outside of just sitting in these little boxes that we're in and talking to one another. What can we do to build those connections where no work talk is allowed and we're connecting as human beings? You want to integrate employee recognition programs. Those are more important than ever, and you want to use them consistently to boost morale and connection. We don't have the sort of props that you normally would get sitting in the office with somebody and saying, great job, that was awesome. So there are, fortunately, really creative ways of doing that, and that really pays off in terms of showing people that they're seen, which is so important right now. So one thing that I love is sort of a variation on employee recognition, but I call them joy bombs. This is something that we do at Amira Health. Tiny little random acts of kindness. They don't have to cost a dime, but just those little things that inspire joy. And so the more that you do that for your team and encourage others to do that, it's one of those things. It does start to ripple out and more people do it. And then any opportunity to create joy in a dark time is just such an opportunity and we've got to take it. And then we also want to do sort of like the buddy system in daycare. We want to look out for others. So keep an eye on others, check out, see how they're doing. But you also want to encourage your team to do so too, because you are one person where your team is so many people. Encourage people to look out for one another and be empathic towards one another. And then just one sort of note here, sorry to be a downer, but we want to be thoughtful about any events or activities. I know happy hours are popular and drinks after work, but right now, when so many people are dealing with substance use, we want to be conscientious about drinking focused events. And I'm saying this the day after St. Patrick's Day, but just be really conscious that might you have to really think about your team overall and whether or not that's a fit for them. So just be conscious of that fact. So now it's your turn. So we like to do this in our webinars. I love this one. So what you're going to do is you are going to send a joy bomb. And you're going to send a joy bomb in the form of it can be a text, it can be a Slack message, whatever you want, a digital message. And you are going to send someone a message of love. And maybe it's your partner. You want to thank them for making dinner last night. Maybe it's someone at work. You want to send them a little bit of recognition. Maybe it's just a friend. You want to say, hi, I miss you. I love you. But I just want you to send a joy bomb out into the world, and then we'll see if we get any joy bombs back. So take a quick moment to do that, please. I'm going to send one too. Okay. And what I'd love for you to do is if you do get a response, if you pop, just let us know in the chat box and let us know if you got a response and how it made you feel. If you did not get a response, don't worry. Sometimes people are busy. A delay is not a denial. That's something I've learned in life. Patience is a virtue. Okay, so joy bombs are lovely. And then how are you maintaining social team connections right now? What are you doing with your team to stay connected as human beings, not just workers? And is there any room for improvement? Could you be doing anything a little bit differently? Just a little something to think about. This is a big one, and I am terrible at this. I am supposed to be on vacation this week, and that's going great. So, self care is non negotiable. This is one that we're not striving for perfect, we're striving for better. And that's me giving myself a pass, but also the rest of you. We are all busy. We are all way too busy balancing too many different things in our lives. And it's really easy to just boot self care off your list because the only person you're breaking a promise to is yourself. And while that's easy, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Self care is actually integral to you and your team's resilience and your long term success. You need to take care of yourself, and your team needs to take care of themselves because you are the foundation on which your life is built. And if the foundation is full of cracks and falling apart, eventually everything piled on top of it is going to fall as well. So what is self-care anyway? It can sometimes be seen as just like a bubble bath once in a while, but it's actually acknowledging what you need to care for your mental, emotional, and physical health, and then actively meeting those needs. So for some people to feel in balance, they need to go for a run. Some people, like myself, I need some alone time and I need to read a book and be away from other people. So, thinking about what it is, what your self care looks like to sort of refill that emotional bucket so you can return into the world and be ready for the next battle. And we need to remember to use it as a preventative, regular practice. Yes, it's good to use it when things are really stressful. It's good to give yourself a self care break, but it's even better to also use it in advance of something going wrong so that you're more equipped to handle the challenges that arise in your life. So now this is your turn. How can you encourage and enable your team members to practice regular self-care? And when I say enable, I say that intentionally because I've heard about, workplaces with unlimited vacation and all sorts of great things. But you have to actually be able to take that time off. You actually have to be able to facilitate taking a proper lunch break, going for a massage once a week, whatever it might be. God, that would be amazing. Anyway, people actually have to be able to do that. They can't just be given the promise of that and then not actually have the time to do it. And sometimes that also can be sort of being like I'm like the mom with our team. It's like, okay, you've got a massage appointment or a therapy appointment. Go, get out the door. This can wait. So sometimes you have to be that tough love mom to help ensure that other people are doing what they need to be well. And then I want you to think of 3 things, if you're not doing them already, that you can do for your own self care practice. Is that meditation? Is that going for a walk at lunch? What does that look like for you? Noah, what are your 3 things? Put you on the spot, mister.
I have definitely not been doing a lot of good self-care lately, but what I try to do is I try to take 45 minutes at the end of the night to just stretch and meditate. And that's that when I don't do it and I miss those sessions, my sleep isn't as good.
Yep.
And I find I'm just not nearly as centered the next day. And then regular exercise is a big thing for me, whether it's running or climbing or just some way to physically move my body. My wife will look at me if I haven't exercised in 2 weeks and is like, "You need to go for a run."
That's good. See, you need that cheerleader.
Yeah. She's very good at like looking at me and being like, "You're gonna blow your fuse."
Totally.
Run around.
And oh, I've got children in the background, don't we all? Just running around. And one really good one that I've heard, and that I have to admit I did at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've not been so good lately. Thanks for that, Kaden. Appreciate it. Um, I used to, when I started my day remotely, I would go out and go for a walk and then come back like I was walking to work. I'd go out and walk at lunch like it was a lunch break, like I was leaving the office. And then I would go for a walk at the end of the day just to sort of delineate between home and work. So there's a lot of different creative ways that you can do it.
Yeah, I love the commute to work, even though you're at home.
Exactly. Yes. You build in a commute, a walking commute, a cycling commute. Sometimes I'll be honest, this is terrible for the environment and everything else, but I'll hop in the car and go get Starbucks. Like if I just want to like have some level of normalcy. So no shame, no shame. So anyway, that is the end of the formal presentation, but I would love to have some discussion and questions and all of that. But that's the content.
Yeah, we've got, so we had 4 questions submitted before people actually showed up to the webinar. So let's jump into those ones first, and I'll give
Fantastic.
you can jump in, and then if people have more questions, please throw them into the Q&A and we can answer those as they come in as well. So
Great.
first question that came in was, what advice or tips would you give to managers? So not just HR people, but managers who are trying to keep their teams and themselves mentally stable. So they're like, a lot of the same things apply, but like, how do we communicate that to our management team?
Absolutely. And I think that some of our clients, what they've done is they've been putting content in front of their teams, like whether it's in the Slack channel or at team meetings, and saying, we are prioritizing mental health at our company. And here's what we're doing. So, sending a clear message and actually not like an announcement, like you want pats on the back, but just making it very clear that you are, this is a thing and we care about this and we're going to keep prioritizing it. And then you have to deliver. You have to keep delivering that, whatever, however that might look. And as well, another thing I think is really important is to normalize the dialogue around mental health and the stigma. If you feel comfortable sharing your own challenges in a respectful way that's not oversharing and not handing a trauma stick to somebody. When mental health stuff comes up in our workplace and I have to recommend, our program to somebody to get help, I also say, like, I have clinical anxiety. Like, I have clinical anxiety for which I take medication, and it's changed my life for the better. And I think there are powerful ways to get better. So I'm really proud of you for taking this step to try to manage your mental health. And if you need anything and you want to talk to me at any time, just reach out. So just being really transparent and talking about mental health equally as you would physical health. I have a broken wrist and I have clinical anxiety, and two of those are both health conditions that are being treated, and that's totally normal.
Yeah,
Great
that's good.
question. Great question.
And then the next one is, so checking in with employees' mental health without being nosy or learning too much info as a coworker or manager. So there's that fine balance of like, how much should I actually be asking and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to pretend to be or end up in the role of a therapist. No. And this is another thing too, whether it's someone at work or a partner, we shouldn't be pretending to be therapists. We're not therapists. But what we can be is just sort of expressing compassion and saying, I see that I feel like you might be struggling. Is there anything I can do to help? And if they do start to, because people do, especially when I work at a mental health company. I'm not a counselor. I have zero counseling credentials, but people start to go a bit too far. That's where I say, you know what? Therapy has been so helpful for me. If you need the name, if you would like to give that a try, I have some names of some amazing therapists that I cannot recommend enough. And just setting a boundary for yourself, because there is the danger of, I always call it like you and somebody else are sort of treading water and they start to drown and they're pushing your head down too. You can't drown with them. That there's a line there. So definitely setting a boundary and saying, oh, wow, that sounds like you're dealing with a lot. I really found therapy helpful, or I know there are great resources through our work. Do you know about the resources through work? Whatever that might be, but protect your boundaries yourself while also expressing compassion at the same time. So don't shame anyone for asking you or say, God, I don't know about that. Leave me alone. But just finding ways to root that person, help them find the pathway to care that doesn't involve you becoming an unofficial therapist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's great. Like having that resource of, here are some people that I've worked with, or here are like a list of resource therapists and counselors that I know are good, or
Yeah, being able to send them somewhere is an empowering thing for sure, rather than saying, yeah, it really sucks.
yeah.
But the government right now actually has I think it's called Wellness Together, actually has a lot of programming as well. I think in terms of resources, there is more available now than we've ever had before, as people are recognizing this. So even if you need to do a quick bit of research to find where to send someone, if you don't have something in your workplace, just finding ways to help them without making yourself the frontline worker.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And then question number 3 is about measuring employee wellness. So like, are there good ways and bad ways of measuring employee wellness? Because sometimes we just can't tell, especially in this remote world, because we're not with people, and you can't pick up on those physical cues and those as well as you could in the past.
Exactly. So there are different ways, sort of more formalized ways to do employee wellness checks through different software and whatnot. But if you want to do it more informally, um, anonymity is key. Anything that you ask to attach somebody to a declaration of mental illness is not going to work because stigma is still very, very present. And I think also it needs to be part of a larger strategy. If you just want to do sort of a mental health check with no other conversation around mental health, no other, as I said, sort of featuring mental health as a priority or part of your values, if you're just coming out of nowhere and saying, hey, we're doing a mental health check, I wouldn't answer that truthfully. I would lie. 100%. So I think it's realistic to do sort of maybe it's an anonymous survey or something, but anything that uses anonymity, but within a framework of trust. So it's not just a one-off, it has to be part of a larger strategy.
Yeah, that's great.
If you want honest feedback, if not, people are just going to lie because they're worried that they might lose their job, right? So yeah, it's unfortunately it's not a one size fits all. It's going to take some work and planning.
That's great. Yeah, and it's that bigger effort of overall wellness, not just checking boxes.
Exactly. And if you integrate it, that's another thing. If you integrate it with physical wellness as well and demonstrating that the equality between the two, and it is just how are you feeling physically at the same time, then you're sort of destigmatizing the mental health component by not isolating it from physical health.
Mm-hmm. Great. And so we have one more question that somebody submitted, and then we can get to the other Q&A. But this one was about how can we further support people to access the programs that are already in place? And so they sort of chatted about they promote their benefits, they have a variety of reminders, they encourage leaders to have the conversations with their people, encourage them to have balance and know they're supported. And then in their most recent survey, they only saw that 60% of people were actually using the services that they have. So how can they keep promoting and get people to really, take on the services and use them when
Yeah.
they're there?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's that old expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't, dunk its head in the water and force it to to drink. Um, there's always, I think, some people are going to be, I think 100% of your team being open to resources is highly unlikely. It's challenging. I think there will always be those who are cynical about anything that comes from their employer. There will be those who are in denial about what they're dealing with and don't want to deal with it. There are going to be those people who will seek out help on their own. They don't want to they want to be solely responsible and do it independently. They don't want any connection, church and state, work and personal life. So I don't think it's realistic to set a goal of everyone using it. At the same time, I think that's where I come back to the test driving. See what the user experience is like if you haven't already, because it might not be good. And if it's not good, I wouldn't go use it either. And a lot of people will not talk to you when they've had a negative experience. They'll just, go do something else or not get treatment at all. I think also it's part of you got to be really thoughtful about how it's being presented and the time it's being given, the focus it's being given in comparison to other things that you're talking about. So how much time is going into strategic planning and marketing and all these sorts of things, and then is mental health just tacked on, or is it part of a larger piece of your company's story? So it's not easy, but you can literally put it in front of them as much as you want, but not everyone is ever going to use it all the time, and that's okay. It's mental health, it's complicated, and people may already be seeing a psychiatrist for all you know. Like my situation with my clinical anxiety has never been connected with my workplace whatsoever. It's always been independent. So don't assume that just because they're not integrating or interfacing with your program, that doesn't mean they're not getting help or that that you're able to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the counselor that I see on a regular basis has never been connected to any workplace program. And even if I had a workplace program, I probably wouldn't use it because I have such a rapport with that person and I wouldn't want to change it.
Yeah, it depends on a lot. And then there are those who wouldn't be able to access therapy without a program. So it's everybody's different and it's complex and it's nuanced and again, no one size fits all. So it's a complex beast, but we're learning more every day and getting better and better at it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're kind of up on time, but I think this last question is these last questions are really important. So I want to go in, and if people have to drop off, please drop off, and we'll be sending resources and recordings to everybody and getting going from there. But one question of like, how do you advise making the shift from being that consistent overworker? So this is like the self-care piece.
Yes.
Know the expectations have been set, and you feel you've been seen, you feel you'll be seen as dropping the ball or not meeting expectations because you've set that overwork bar so high.
Good point. And I think that requires a setting of new boundaries, but not just, but being not quite announcing it, but a step below announcing it, but being really clear. Look, I have been doing too much to this point, and it's had consequences for me. I'm setting new boundaries, and I really need your help and support in enforcing these boundaries to be able to be engaged and functional in the long term. This is what I need to do. And it's okay to realign everybody's expectations. But you have to realign those expectations clearly, and then you have to enforce those new boundaries, or you'll be right back where you started. It's really hard. I think it's like 66 days to create a new habit. It's really hard. But I think one piece, and maybe you need to see a therapist because I'm not a therapist, is unpacking that idea of why do you think by not doing too much that you're not doing enough? That's the question that I would ask, because there's somewhere in the middle that's okay and required for you to be able to function in the long term. So I think that's the question there, but clear boundaries, set and enforce boundaries. And if anyone gets upset about it, that's not about you, that's about them. And if they like overworking you, if they liked the overwork version of you, that means they're not deeply concerned about your health and wellness in the long term, and we don't need to take their thoughts into consideration.
Awesome. And then the last one is a quick answer. I think this is about the joy bombs, but does it have to be a coworker or anyone in general? My assumption
anyone.
Is anyone. Yeah.
Anyone. I think any opportunity to make somebody's day better. I mean, why not? I was talking about an Instagram video I saw where someone was just driving around yelling compliments at people. And I thought it was so beautiful and so fun because, of course, they only show the ones where the people are like, oh my gosh, thank you. But then somebody did it to me in traffic one day and it felt really awkward and I froze up and I took a right turn where I didn't have to just to get away. So I think being conscientious and maybe yelling at people is not the best way. But I think everyone and anyone, because that's the beautiful part. Our collective mental health is struggling, but collectively we can also take care of one another, even if it's just like walking past someone and saying, oh my gosh, I love that sweater. It's really beautiful color on you. And they're just like, oh my gosh, thank you. Right. So no, not just coworkers, everyone and everyone.
Awesome. Great. That was all the questions that we had. I just want to say a big thank you to Aaron, a big thank you to everyone who joined us. If you have any questions about Amir Health or Gusto, like you can reach out to Aaron or myself on LinkedIn or emails. You can see our email addresses down on the next screen. So if you have any questions, you want to get in contact, you're interested in the programs that we're offering, we'd love to hear more about that. And I know like everyone's walking away with this webinar with some new insights, tools, and resources. I know I am. And we'll be sending out an email with more links and all of that other great stuff. So very excited to share that because this is such a poignant topic that we're all right now. And so yeah, excited that. And so I know like I wanted to like in part of that, we're talking about recognition rewards. And so Gusto, if you're interested, we got a little special promo attached to this one because we really believe that recognition, making sure employees are seen and heard is a big part. So if you want to book a demo in the next like 24 or 48 hours, you can get 6 months free with our platform if you sign an annual plan. So just to help with that recognition part. So again, you can reach out to myself. Deborah and Luke are on chat as well. So you can also ask one of them about the details. But if you're interested in doing that piece, let us know. We'd love to help out and give you a deal on our program. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks, Aaron, again. And we're going to end there and just want to say, yeah, thanks again, everybody. And look forward to those resources as they hit your inboxes in the next couple of days.
Okay. I hope you all get responses to your joy bombs. Keep sending. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.